Drive rush is inevitable. That is what I don't like about this mechanic in this game.
That's okay that it's going to be something that is quote unquote inevitable. That starts to sound like Thanos, like it's going to be the only thing.
That's taking a statement and putting it beyond what I was saying. Inevitable means it's going to happen in the match at some point in time because you have to use this tactic in this game to be successful.
As you would do with a jump, as you would do with blocking. And I do think it's as important to the meta as these other really important things, but I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, so how about drive reversal? Are you always going to see drive reversal come out in a matchup?
I am, because I'm a Lily player.
There's been some talk on the team here that Drive Rush is a little overpowered potentially, and there's actually been some debate, as there has been in the community at large. So we want to jump into it here, and I guess I'll turn it right over to John, because John, you have been the one that has said that you're not a huge fan of the way Drive Rush works within the whole meta right now. I'll turn it right over to you. What do you think of Drive Rush?
Yeah, Drive Rush is inevitable. That is what I don't like about this mechanic in this game, where I think you look at drive impact, you look at drive parry, you look at all the other kind of stuff, and I think those are fairly well balanced and fit a really good context in this game. But in this game, it's only a matter of time, not if, but when a high-level player is going to drive rush you. And watching Gamers 8, when all the money's on the line, the biggest fighting game prize payout we've ever seen, and people are drive rushing like crazy. And I will quote Mena RD here and probably pop it up on screen. Only counterplay to drive rush is acceptance of the inevitable and the ability to smile after the fact. This is the Capcom Cup champion saying basically drive rush is coming, be ready for it. It's coming, and it's way too freaking strong right now. This is something that I've been on since the beta 3. It is, the risk reward for this is very heavily skewed towards reward, and I don't like it because it's basically like a V-trigger activation in this game with how it is scaled and scoped right now.
Steven, your response to that?
Yeah, I think that Drive Rush, at least I think the main thing we're talking about here, just to clarify, I think we're mostly speaking about raw Drive Rush, the one that costs one bar to do in the neutral, yes. I think that raw Drive Rush, when used for like Oki situations or pressure and stuff like that, definitely can have some situations where it's really tough to deal with, especially depending on the character. If you have somebody like a DJ or like a Jury, once they knock you down, they can kind of Drive Rush and get a lot of really good pressure. Depending on the character you're playing, it could be really difficult to escape that. So in some situations, I definitely think it can be really strong. That having been said, I don't feel like it's kind of a overall really major big issue right now. We're starting to kind of see the meta evolve further as we continue to play this game. Watching Gamers 8 and Evo these past 2 weekends, you're seeing a lot of pros start to bait it out, start to check it in neutral. It's the game is still kind of evolving around it. It's definitely strong, but I don't think it's the giant, sore thumb that some people are thinking it is right now.
So I have been looking at this. I've been watching the Gamers 8 finals, a lot of those matches, rewatching them. Of course, we all watched Evo, and then watching them with this in mind. And here's what I'm kind of seeing. The meta in Street Fighter 6, or the meta in any footsies kind of Street Fighter game, has something to do with a balance of poking, whiff punishing, and then maneuvering. And it's those three things that kind of make up the neutral for the most part, right? Because you can either be playing footsies, or you can use moves that tend to skip footsies, or, jump or dash forward. And then Drive Rush obviously plays into that maneuvering aspect of the whole thing. In Street Fighter 6, if you watch the pros, what you're seeing is they are beginning the rounds much farther apart than in a traditional footsie exchange. They're not close enough to really poke each other and whiff punish each other at the beginning, and they're doing a lot of sticking buttons out. And why is that? Because Drive Rush is first and foremost the scary thing that you have to deal with, because someone could pounce on you from far away, generally speaking. But what I'm seeing is that it starts that way, and neither player is using it to initially engage, and then they kind of maneuver closer to each other, and then a footsie kind of battle actually begins, where either a whiff punish initiates an actual contact, or some kind of a cami dive kick or a spin knuckle, or some kind of a maneuver gets the party started. That's not to say that Drive Rush never comes out. Of course it does, but I think the pros are stuffing drive rush if it just happens out in the neutral. I'm seeing that constantly kind of either happen or they're not going for it anymore from the neutral from raw because it's just not a valid strategy at that high level anymore. There are situations, like Steven was saying, after a knockdown or in certain pressure scenarios where you're going to use it and it's going to be really good. But for the most part, I do not see it as this thing that's taking away from everything else and being the be-all, end-all. I didn't see that statement by Mena RD saying that it's inevitable. That seems kind of murky to me because it's like, well, yeah, it's going to get used. And it's very powerful, especially when you're using it for pressure. But we're talking about, or for combo extension, but we're talking about from the neutral. I don't see it as something that is overly powerful. It's something that you have to care about, that you have to look for. But if you're looking for it, it's the kind of thing that you can grow to stuff. And as I'm looking at this, I'm like, I feel like it's kind of a scrub killer right now. And I get killed by it sometimes, especially being a JP player. And we can talk about that. I'm sure we will a bit. But I do not think it's an issue from the neutral right now. The one exception to that would maybe be DJ having the fastest drive rush, because I have a hard time reacting to that. And so sometimes it feels to me like if DJ drive rushes, it doesn't matter if I was ready or not or what I was doing. He's just going to get in for free. But I would still err on the side of saying that's on me not being quite ready, not getting my reactions and my skills up to par. It's not the game. And I think it actually plays perfectly into how this game is balanced in the neutral right now.
Yeah, I think that if you guys look closer at the ratio of drive gauge usage, basically, and look at drive rush compared to other ones, I think you'll see about a 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 ratio in terms of drive rush being used. Because when I was covering Gamers 8 and I covered it all weekend, I got disgusted at how much drive rush I saw. I watched every match, I covered everything for the website, got it up there, and to me, it was disgusting how much drive rush there is. It's a broken mechanic in regards of how much risk reward it is and just how many resources it takes. It's way too advantageous to use it. Again, shouts to Mena RD. He echoed what I've been saying, and that's one of the best players alive right now. You could even make a case he's still the best of, but shouts Cockaroo there. I'm sure we'll discuss this a bit more. To me, the mechanic definitely needs to be tweaked, and I think the main way that stuff is going to be tweaked in this game is going to be mostly by doing the damage scaling, or combo damage scaling, basically, which is a brand new mechanic that Capcom has put into this game. I think that the drive rush stuff is going to scale much further in the future because the +4 on block, R on hit it's way too good for something that's very hard to react to consistently.
Well, I think again, it is something that it's on the individual to react to. And John, you and I are both JP players, and there's something to be said about JP's relationship to drive rush, because I would say that drive rush is more of a counter to JP than it is to a lot of other characters because of the way he controls the neutral. He doesn't have as many horizontally active hitboxes as other characters. Like when Ryu throws a fireball, that's a hitbox that is going to stop a drive rush. If it's not stuffing him on the beginning of his fireball in the startup, then that's a counter to drive rush, naturally speaking. But JP's projectiles all kind of don't have that, or they can get drive rush past unless you're Lily. Shoutouts to Steven.
But the offset to that is many people are arguing, it was argued during the Gamers 8 stream actually, that JP has the best normals in the game for stopping drive rush because of the reach on them and the active frames on them. Specifically, standing heavy punch and crouching medium kick are very effective at that. They're very good moves for stopping drive rush. And so the game, and I would say enticingly so, becomes, well, I, especially as a JP player, have to play that game of when you are at a certain distance and when that potential for you to drive rush forward is there, I can't willy-nilly be throwing out projectiles. And at the beginning of the game, JPs were just throwing out projectiles because no one knew how to deal with them. But as people have understood what they are and what they aren't, and how much drive rush can do to those projectiles, and I'm just going to call them all projectiles, but the spike and the snap and the ghost and all that kind of stuff. It's a whole new battlefield now where I have to wait and be ready for those normals. And then if I'm doing that, I'm not tossing all my crap out on screen, and that's a benefit too to the other player because now they can inch forward. But it becomes this engaging back and forth of, okay, if you're gonna wait, then maybe I can put stuff out on the screen. But if you drive rush in at any time and I try to put stuff out on the screen, it's a counter. And that sounds like a nice little back and forth, a nice little
mind game. Now I have to get in front of my opponent as opposed to just deal with some overpowered situation or overpowered ability that the opponent can do over and over again with little to no consequence.
Okay, so here's my thing on this, is at the very beginning of this game, we were pitched by the developers that if there's something you don't want to use or you don't like, you don't have to use it. It is a completely optional thing. You may play however you want to, if it's defensively, if it's wherever. And my argument here is that there's not a case out there where you can take Drive Rush off the table for your character because it's so good, it's so effective, it's so efficient. You have to use it in this game. I don't think that you can get anywhere without using Drive Rush.
Probably, yeah. I think it's extremely important. As I was saying at the beginning, and I want to give a little shout out to Porta John, my buddy here from Arizona, who placed in top 8 at Defend the North. Because and someone who really studies all this stuff and is pretty articulate. He and I talked about this a little bit in preparation for all of this, just trying to get, picking some brains and whatnot. And but that kind of rock paper scissors of neutral, of you either have poke, counter poke, or mobility. It absolutely in the Street Fighter 6 atmosphere plays into that. And I think that that's okay, that it's going to be something that is quote unquote inevitable. That starts to sound like Thanos, like it's going to be the only thing or something along those lines. And I don't agree with that. I think that we can counter.
Yeah, that's
Drive
taking
Rush.
a statement and putting it beyond what I was saying. Inevitable means it's going to happen in the match at some point in time because you have to use this tactic in this game to be successful.
As you would do with a jump, as you would do with blocking, as you would do with virtually any other part of, and I do think it's as important to the meta as these other really important things, but I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, so how about drive reversal? Are you always going to see drive reversal come out in a matchup?
I am, because I'm a Lily player.
Yes, a Lily player for sure, yes.
I get drive reversaled every 3 seconds, so yes.
Right, and again, the amount that you're seeing drive rush compared to the other things in the game, like drive rush stands head and shoulders above the other mechanics in this game, and that's what the developers said they were trying to avoid. They're trying to say, like, well, some people might play like that. If you play Cammy or DJ or other stuff, that's totally fine, and you would expect to see drive rush way more than you would with someone like, say, JP or someone like that. But the thing about it is pretty much everyone's got to use this mechanic, and they have to use it frequently. That's what I was seeing on Gamers 8. When all the money's on the table, when all this other stuff is going down, the drive rush came out in spades.
I didn't see the engagements like that, but Steven, go ahead. Especially as a Lily player, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, and I'll agree too. I feel like I watched a lot of Gamers 8 and I watched a lot of Evo. I don't feel like I saw players kind of hitting a wall and then just going, well, let's start drive rushing in because it's going to work. I didn't feel like I don't feel like I saw that.
Mena RD did that multiple times at the very end of Evo, where he was hitting a wall with Blanca and Luke, and he just started drive rushing like crazy. And sometimes it worked.
He lost.
Yeah, he lost, but sometimes it worked. But I mean, again, he got what, like third or something like that? I need to double check.
Well, if it was at the end of Evo, that's when he lost.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean,
so if he just fell back on that as a tactic, it didn't work.
The thing I want to talk about
it worked the other times, but yeah.
Yeah, but the other added kind of layer to this though that we're not talking about yet that I really do want to talk about is in these last two major tournaments, I feel like we saw a very big shift in the meta in the sense of pro players are starting to target the opponent's drive gauge more. So trying to force burnout situations, using level 3s early in rounds because, it's going to give them a better position with drive gauge. You look at that with raw drive rush and you go, okay, it takes 1 bar to get in and to use it, right? But the follow-up is either going to be, if you say you got the hit with your raw drive rush, that's 1 bar. The follow-up is either going to be an OD combo, which is another 2 bars, or a drive rush cancel to extend, which is now 4 bars. So once you kind of start putting that into the equation, it's like, yes, raw drive rush is good to get stuff started, but that next interaction, you're cooking a lot of your meter. And
you don't have to cook meter though to do that. Like as a JP, I can do crouching medium kick into crouching medium punch into cancel right there, and I don't have to cook any more meter except for that 1 bar.
You get a confirm, but that's not a ton of damage. I mean, you're going to get some positioning, sure, but it's not a...
If I go into level 3, it's 50%.
But you're cooking your super, and super is a whole other discussion of how important it is to have that. So
that's a lot of resources,
You're using a lot of resources is my point. And it's like, if you're...
I'm using resources on a high-low from half screen. So I can either go with my overhead or I can go with my low, and they're both very difficult to react to consistently. And if I hit that, I'm getting 50% of your health, and it's a high-low from half screen distance.
Well, but the onus is on the person to stuff, and I think
I'm
that
saying
the
it's
pros
impossible to stop. I'm just saying it's really powerful in the context of this game. Very clearly you can stop it, but again, it's Mena ran out of options, and he's like, let me just drive rush and hope it works, and it did it multiple times. It's not like, and this is against the best players on the planet in a really good situation. To me, again, this mechanic is just, it's too strong how it currently exists.
I don't know. I see it more as like it's definitely a good party starter. It's very strong in that sense, but to me, it's you're going to have to cook a lot of resources to make it count, kind of thing. Because you're going to get, if you're not going to cook any resources off of that, you're getting a meterless combo that is probably going to do decent damage, but it's not going to change too much. I don't think in the grand scheme of things. You're usually going to cook, like you said, a level 3 super, or you're going to cook 3 bars for a drive rush cancel. And I was noticing in Gamers 8 and Evo that the top players, once they got down to about 2 bars of drive gauge, they started to clam up. They didn't want to do anything because they're like, I'm too close to burnout. I don't want to risk doing drive rush. I don't want to risk doing anything, because if you get in burnout in this game, it's a terrible situation to be in. And not even just for the stun in the corner thing. Like, people are starting to drag this out now with burnout and just get chip damage, just get advantageous positioning, all that kind of stuff, and it's really hard to fight when you're in burnout. So to me, I kind of look at it as like, yes, you can do it. You can bank your strategy on raw drive rushes and try to do it, but to a player who knows how to stop that stuff and just who has a general counter and is targeting your drive gauge, that's a risk, dude. Like, it's a pretty big risk still, because again, if you get that confirmed, you're going to want to combo into something larger to get that damage, to get the corner carry. That's either 4 bars of drive gauge right out of the gate, or at least 3 if you're doing OD, or you're cooking your super, which again, that's a whole other conversation because of the perks of having supers in those later rounds is so important.
The thing about it is, this is the cheapest resource spending item in the entire game, because it takes 1 bar of drive gauge to get it started. And I get that you can follow it up afterwards and other stuff, but that's like, this is the cheapest resource spending thing that you can do in the entire game.
Yeah, on par with drive impact. But yeah. Well, and then like parry, but fair, but it is cheap relative to a lot of the other stuff. Sure, fair enough. I don't see, in watching a lot of the matches back from yesterday, that was not the thing that people resorted to more often than not, like not even half the time, to actually get interactions going. They respected it, and when you play online, it's a different story, because everyone and their mother is throwing it at the wall, and that's where I get to like, maybe it's more along the lines of Scrub Killer, and it's something that we have to level up to be able to be ready for and adjust our gameplay, again, especially as JP players, to not be doing something that occupies us so that we're ready to stuff it. But I didn't see them actually using it to get the party started. It's like, yes, this is good until you start looking for it, and now it's just one more thing, and it's not free to do. Like, if you do it and they counter, they're hitting you into whatever combo they want, and then you've lost all that momentum plus a bar plus whatever they hit you with. I think that the risk is there, and the pros are respecting it with one another. I'm sure Mena used it a few times, but I see meter saved much more for situations toward the end of the round, where if you get the hit, you can go into a double cancel, a double drive rush cancel, which is the equivalent of 6 bars. If you have more than 4 bars, you can do that, and you'll still go into burnout, but the idea is you get a combo that's long enough into super to kill, and it doesn't matter. But having those 4 bars to do that is really important, and I see that being the place where people are using their meter more for than something like, just like, you don't see someone just use raw drive rush 6 times in a round, and I mean, maybe at lower levels, but I don't see that kind of a thing happening and being effective at all at high level. And if Mena was doing it at the end of Evo again, and that was where he lost, it's like, yeah, maybe he fell back and he went into that because it was his panic mode, but it didn't work.
All right, so we're kind of going in circles here. I want to end it on this one, and let me ask both of you.
How would you change it? Like, what would you want to do to change it?
Well, actually, that's the next question I've got. So I want to ask both of you guys. A year from now, Capcom does a balance update. Do you think that neutral drive rush, exactly as it is right now, stays the same, or it gets nerfed? What do you guys think happens here in a year?
What do we want to happen?
No,
or what do we think will happen?
What do you think happens?
Honestly, with the way Capcom's going right now, with the way they're kind of doing things, it might see some changes. I I kind of doubt that they're going to do the, making it cost more meter. I don't think they're going to go that route again. I think that the implications of that and kind of the ripple effect of what that would do to the rest of the game, like there's so much to that I think making that change, like on paper, that sounds like, oh yeah, that's the choice to make. But I think that the effects of that are going to be really large, just kind of throughout the whole game. So I don't think they're going to do that. They might. I would be surprised if they don't nerf DJs and juries to start, and that's where I'd like them to begin. Maybe we see some damage scaling, further damage scaling added to it for drive rush on hit kind of thing. But that would probably be my guess, because I don't know, man. I see people like. There's people who are complaining about it, but it doesn't feel like it's a vocal majority right now. It doesn't feel like this is the big issue here, and we're going to talk about a potential big issue in JP later on here, because there were so many complaints about him throughout these past 2 weekends. But I'm just saying, I would probably assume they're going to do maybe some damage scaling stuff if they're going to change something.
You
and
think
then
they're going to nerf it? Yeah, you think
probably, potentially.
Probably. Okay.
I mean,
John,
potentially they might.
Well, I will say, as a JP player, welcome any and all nerfs to Drive Rush, because that would make my life all the easier. I think as any nerfs to Drive Rush are buffs for JP. So first of all, think about that, internet. Okay, but
JP's getting plenty
as far
of nerfs,
as
so, yeah.
as far
Drive
as
Rush,
what
please.
will Capcom
Buff
do.
Drive Rush.
As far as, especially for Lily, because she's, if you guys don't know, she's one of the characters that can't. I don't think she can drive rush through his ghosts and stuff like that.
It's too slow.
It's like, as far as what will Capcom do, I think that they've thought about this, and in so many instances that we've seen thus far, whether it be when we first started and everyone was like, oh, drive impact is too good. It's like, no, play with it a little bit more, understand the meta a little bit more, and you'll see that they had thought about all of these things, and this is actually exactly where they want it to be. I don't think they're going to touch it, and I don't think they should touch it. And I mean that on the level of, I don't think it should cost more meter. I don't think it should be less plus. I don't think you should get counter hit or punish counter or anything like that. More so when you're stuffed from doing it. I think it actually has its place, and I'm content, even as a JP player, to let it rock as it is. And like, again, it's part of an ecosystem that if you start to mess with that, you might start screwing up other things. And I do think that it's more on us to get good around it. In 2 years, if we're still whining as much as, and like the pros are complaining about it, well, then maybe. But I think right now it's good, and I think it's just a time of learning.
Okay.
I want to add really quickly too. I just want to jump in because I agree with all of that what you just said there, John. With the added the addendum of, I hope that Capcom does look at Jory's and DJ's drive rushes and nerfs those.
I think that.
I would like that
personally.
I would like,
but
to
I don't
see
know
that
it's necessary.
I don't know if it's necessary. I would like to see that, but everything else, I do think that it will mostly remain untouched as well, because so far, for what we've seen from this game, it does feel like Capcom has kind of thought about all these different scenarios, and they clearly know more about this meta than we do right now, because you're starting to see some other stuff like perfect parry and things come into play. And when we all thought it was worthless, and well, not all of us, but some of us thought it wasn't good or it wasn't going to have any uses, now you're starting to see it, and I go, they have some kind of a finger on the pulse here that we don't have fully yet. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, I heard a John grumble in there. I want to hear where John grumble came from.
Yeah, it's giving Capcom too much credit. The moment they say Alex is the number one character in Street Fighter V, you have to throw that out the window.
I don't know what the hell that was, and I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes, but there have been a lot of
things they've attended to.
That was bizarre. But there have been a lot of things that they have done. Stupid. Especially with Street Fighter 6, where it's clear that they were not only very mindful of it, but a couple of steps ahead of the community as the community began to interact with it. And I'm going to err on the side of that for them, even though they said that Alex was the best character. Yeah, that was stupid. Agreed.
I used to lean on that side as well. Like, Capcom doesn't know what they're talking about, especially with the Alex stuff. But then they went and released Street Fighter 6 Rashid. And he wasn't the menace that we all thought he was going to be. And he actually takes skill and thought and technique to play. And I go,
let's save that for the tiers. Yeah, let's.
I'll just say that. I just went, okay, all right, Capcom, I see you. All right.
So that sets the stage pretty well here. We got two people who think Drive Rush is going to get nerfed here in a year, and then we've got one person who thinks it's going to stay the same with Velociraptor. We'll see what happens. I wanted to correct
that. I don't think it's going to be nerfed. I just wanted to correct that as well.
You don't think it's going to be nerfed? Okay.
I don't think.
John, how do you think? Do you know how you think it's going to be nerfed? did you say?
It's going to be, they're going to increase the combo scaling on it. And a great example of that, so to think of it, is JP's Standing Heavy Punch, which is one of the best normals in the entire game. It's got a ton of utility. That thing scales, I believe, at 20% damage, where most other moves, like a light, will scale at 10%, or some moves scale at nothing. Capcom has done it. I think it's Kami's Crouching Medium Kick also scales at like 20%. So moves that they feel that are really strong and giving you a lot of stuff, like they basically inherently do less damage because they just scale much further. And much like we were talking about perfect parries, those start scaling at 50%. So that is the main way I think Capcom is going to balance a lot of the stuff here coming into Season 2.
That would be interesting. I think that of all of the different ways I've heard, especially costing more meter, which is a pretty go-to one, I do think that messing with the scaling would be one of the first places that it would be sort of safe to explore. But I'm still saying what I'm saying.
Yep. All good. That's why we're discussing this stuff. It's no one here knows for sure. We all have different opinions on this. We're trying to get them out there and discuss it and see if we can do it with a little bit of nuance and a lot of arguing, which we did.